I had to try. When people think about traditional beers, they usually think of the Belgian monks brewing their sweet and rich beers. However, Czech beer's history has no less heritage. Today, I will try to summarize the history of both Czech and Belgian beers and talk about the big difference between them and what is going on these days. At the end, I will drink some great classic Belgians. And you at home, now it's a great time to open one, no matter which kind you have, and pour it into your favorite glass, yes? We are starting right after the slide. First, I want to say, in this episode I will try to tell two stories of different famous beer industries. And it will be impossible to tell those stories without skipping on some details, as the beer industry from our early days was powered by individuals. So let's go to the basic and summarize the history of early beer. Until a few hundred years ago, beer was basically the same in all parts of Europe. The main difference was what kind of barley and spices were growing around the brewer. To simplify, brewers put the grains in water, then roast it just before it sprouts. That's to make malted barley or wheat. Then they boil it with water, add some spices, and let it sit for some time in an open air barrel. That's where the magic was happening. Yes, they figured out yeast fermentation just in the recent centuries. During the Middle Ages, Czech Republic became mostly famous for our hoops. Around that time, brewers understood that there is no better spice for beer than that. The oils, coming from the hoops flowers, are getting bitter during the heating and give balance to the sweetness coming from the malt and the tartness that was part of the old beers. And the most important, hoop-spiced beers stayed fresh for much longer, as the hoops are natural preservative. Czech hops were considered to be the best of them all. The noble Záchop variety came from the surrounding area of a city by the same name, Zác or Zatec in Czech. In those early days, Czech or Belgian beers were not considered special or different. Most of the brewing was made at home with very low standard, while medium-sized production started to come to life in monasteries which originally made beers for self-consumption. The big difference comes in the 19th century, when hyper-industrial Czechs created the pale lager. This style is so common today, so much that for many people this is the only beer they ever tried. And even in Belgium, the most consumed beer type is Czech lager. This new style needed to wait for the Industrial Revolution due to its dependence on low and stable temperatures, and other technical needs that had not been found before those days. On the other side of Europe, another revolution would make a big impact on the beer industry. The French Revolution made Catholic priests move from France to Belgium, where they started to brew beers in larger scales, in the abbeys. Surprisingly, therapist beer started to be available for the public around the same time Czech lagers were. Most of the therapist beers and their followers are actually based on English-style ales. However, they are become distinguished by the use of Belgian materials with straightforward sweetness and much subtle bitterness. The Belgian industry, which is considered very traditional, was actually developing old beer making methods into art in the last few hundred years. For example, blending different batches of wild fermented beer from different ages into a more stable final product, or adding fruits to help disguise the odd flavors. If those two beer histories could be summarized to one word, I would say that the Belgian beer is innovative and the Czech one is industrial. Both industries are essential to the modern beers as we know them today. In recent years, affected by the beers coming from the other side of the Atlantic, new craft beers are made in both countries, leaning on the local history and of course the local grown materials. But with all the respect to great foreign styles like New England IPA and Imperial Stout, the most important ones are still those who made those countries' beer industry so legendary. The only one I tried before from the four, it's an example of a great simple therapist triple. I personally don't like the sweetness of the typical Belgian triple and prefer this Chimay White as it's more bitter and fun for me to drink. This brewery is famous for its oat brewing, a very special dark beer which also contains wild fermentation and aging in barrels for a few months. I strongly recommend their Guten Band. I hope I said it right. This time I wanted to try their fruit beer. Wow. It's great. Another one I wanted to try is this Westvleteren. This is a therapist beer, which by the way doesn't say much on the beer style but about who makes them. Anyway, this blonde was impossible to buy until recently, unless you personally went to the abbey and purchased from the monks. They were making a very limited amount per year and it would finish quickly. Nowadays it's possible to order them online and find them actually in stores all over the world. But they are still very expensive and I will try and see if it's worth the money. That's a good beer, but I don't see where the money went to. But it's nice. I had to try. And this is maybe my favorite Belgian style from one of the most famous brewhouses. This is the Old Goose. It's a style that blends different lambic and deserves a video of its own. But you can easily find information about it online. I will age this bottle a little bit more and find the perfect day for it. Do you think that Belgians are superior over others and for sure mass production Czech beers? Maybe you think those are just for beer snobs? Please comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It doesn't cost a thing and it means a lot. And remember, never drink alone. Instead, come and have a beer with Amir.